I'm Ann Shaw. I'm an architectural historian, archaeologist, and Hoosier. I love exploring Indiana's history and lesser-known sites and stories. Join me as we explore old houses, museums, historic sites, and archaeology throughout the state. This is AnneArchy. Hi, we are here at Veraestau Historic Site, just outside of Aurora, Indiana. I am here with Jarrad Holbrook. Jarrad, what do you do here?
Yeah, I'm the director of the Southeast Field Office and Veraestau Historic Site for Indiana Landmarks. We're a statewide nonprofit for historic preservation. We're actually the largest in the country. This is one of our 9 regional offices.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history of this property?
Absolutely. So Veraestau was built in 4 main phases. The very first part was 1809. It was built by Jesse Holman, who was one of the state's first Supreme Court justices. And it was just a log structure. We're actually not entirely sure where it was because, spoiler alert, it's not here any longer. But not long after, in 1810, the section that's right behind you there was added, and it was a residence and office for Mr. Jesse Holman. So that was the first phase. Then it stayed in the same family. His son-in-law, Allen Hamilton, owned it. And in about 1837, 1838, the log section burned. And you have the view that you have here. You can't blame them. They built the main part of the house that's behind me right now. Great revival style. And this was built 1838, and it stayed in the same family, but it sold out in 1930s to Cornelius O'Brien. He was a local industrialist, and he bought it. He was really into conservation. So he not only added onto the building by adding a servant's quarters and bedrooms upstairs, but he also planted pin oaks that line the whole entryway as you come in. So the ones you see here now are from the original planting in the 1930s. They were really big into horses and agriculture. It was sort of a gentleman's farm project for him, sort of on the weekends. And so that's how we have the evolution of the house that we see today.
That is a really interesting, kind of complicated history of a house going through phases of construction.
Right.
So you talked a little bit about landscape. So I think that the landscape of this historic site is incredibly important. It's not just that we have a historic house here that's very early, kind of for Indiana, but the landscape. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. There's also a bur oak tree out in the front part of the property overlooking the Ohio River that is at least 300 years old, if not more. We recently had to do some work to the property and that tree specifically, and we found doing dendrochronology that we could at least count 300 rings on a limb. So we know that's got some significance there. Also on the property are 2 Native American mounds, probably trash middens, but we figure our process with that is to let it stay and remain part of the landscape as it is now and not do further investigation on it.
Preservation in place.
Exactly, preservation in place.
Okay. And this house faces the Ohio River, and I don't want to understate this, but the view is just fantastic. You can almost see to Cincinnati.
But yeah, you can see the Carroll Cropper Bridge, a huge metal bridge, historic bridge that is part of the Cincinnati Loop. So we're also very close to Cincinnati, even though out here you hardly can imagine that you're in a metropolitan area.
It is gorgeous out here. I can't get over how pretty it is.
It's a very peaceful place, and actually the name Veraestau itself comes from the Latin words for spring, summer, and fall, so it's an amalgamation of those, because Holman said winter never comes to Veraestau. Now, as someone who's driven the steep road up here,
yes,
I mean, maybe not exactly accurate,
yeah,
but the sentiment's still there, and it's being on a bald like it is. It's great breezes up here. It's a great place to be.
Now, you opened up the house when we got here, the doors, some of the windows maybe, and the breeze coming through was incredible.
Yeah, you have to get the whole experience,
yes,
of being up here. Yeah.
And the house having so many phases of building is really interesting. It's sort of like a maze inside.
Yeah, it really is. When I first started here for a couple of weeks, I mean, it's not that huge of a house, but there are the way the additions worked. sometimes you find yourself within a stairwell that you didn't even know was there. Turns out it's the servant stairs that actually sneaks down into the kitchen.
Okay.
So that's one of the examples of how it changes. And even the changes in ceiling height give you some clues as to how the house was added on. There are also steps up and down, and that triggers a time change, which is helpful for us when we're interpreting the site and talking about it to say, here's an architectural time change.
Yes.
I mean, in reality, they knew they weren't going to be able to line up the floors with the way that the house is going to sink and fall with the addition of buildings. In fact, the door behind you on the inside, you can see where the lintel is kind of crooked, because when this section was added on later, that part of the building actually shrunk. Although, they worked it out and changed, shaved parts of the door and changed it, and it still operates like it should. So they figured it out.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
The house itself is furnished with period pieces, correct?
So the furniture and photos, everything you see in the house today is from the second family. So this is all from the O'Brien family. It was donated to us in 2004 by Mary O'Brien Gibson, which is a fantastic gift. It's 116 acres. But with that came all the furnishings you see in here. So they are period, some of them, but they aren't going to be from the oldest period of the house. They're not Hamilton or Holman pieces. That said, we treat them like furniture, And so part of our goal here is to really be a model of that. Preservation doesn't always mean you have to be roped off. It's not always a look but don't touch museum approach. I mean, that's what we do after all, is talk about livability of preservation. And so we really want to use this building to exemplify that. So, you sit on the dining room chairs, you use, the end tables, in the living room. So we really want to sort of lead by example with this property.
That's really unique, and I like that you can actually touch that history and sit on it.
Yeah. Well, people are surprised. Like, sometimes you have to encourage people. It's okay. It's really okay. You can have a seat. It's fine.
So obviously right now you are not booking any rentals, no tours because of the pandemic.
Right.
If somebody wanted to get more information though, they could go to the indianalandmarks.org website. There is a little bit of history on the site there. Is there anything else that you would encourage people to look at or talk to you about?
Sure, yeah. On the website, there's a link for email. They can absolutely send us email to talk about rental options, or when we have a more clear picture of what tour availability is going to be, happy to get in touch with them and talk about that. Because normally we also do tours by appointment. Not doing that now, but we can certainly look far ahead to maybe some other time and have that discussion. So yeah, by all means, reach out to us.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today at Veraestau Historic Site, and thank you so much to Jarrad with Indiana Landmarks for hosting us today. Please stay tuned for more episodes.